think another thing that you can do as a critical friend, again, without being seen as threatening or putting people on the defensive, is to ask about the long-term future and maintain that kind of emphasis on embedding and sustainability from very early on, because sometimes projects don't think about that until rather too late in the day.
In fact, it was very interesting. In the early stages, the requirement was for the projects to do a sort of fairly detailed project plan and do some baseline activities, and there were lots of whinges about that and about the amount of effort. But I think, I don't know, about certainly my groups, you know, once they'd done it, they actually then saw the value of it, although they kind of complained at the time. And I think what was important about it was, as you say, Peter, it was getting that thoughts in their mind that this is not just about doing this project and success is delivering the outputs. Success is actually truly measured like 3 or 4 years after the project is finished, when, you know, it's not just about a pilot, you know, testing out your ideas, it's actually about how it's embedded. And I think that's where the critical friends role is so important, to get across points like that, because it's very true, I think, in academic culture that, you know, academics are very keen to sort of undertake these sort of innovation projects, but once they're done, the paper has been written, it's sort of, there's almost a mindset, well, let's move on to the next one.
Sure.
And so I think getting that, although they might not be the people to roll the innovations out, they're important in actually selling it to perhaps champions and to deans and heads of faculties to actually get their buy-in to help roll it out.
I wanted to make the point that our projects were looking at transforming learning and teaching practice, but actually some of there's been other skills developed that are equally important to transfer and sustain and embed beyond the life of the practice, the life of the project. In particular, things like the discipline of evaluation and evidencing impact. These are great skills that the projects now have, if you like, fine-tuned and refined through the project work. But they in turn should become embedded into institutional practice, because any institution implementing a learning teaching assessment strategy where change is expected should be able to evidence the strategy working in practice, and some of the skills learned through these projects would help institutions to do that.
In my CAMEL group, there were sort of 3 projects which sort of were kind of similar. They were really focusing on using technologies and using them in different ways to support the curriculum. But there was then one project which was a little bit more looking at, it's almost the systems, etc., behind the delivery. So even basic things like coursework submission. It was looking at things like generic templates and generic materials, which kind of a little bit different to the other ones. And what was interesting about that project is actually it was very driven from their department's business strategy and their overall strategy for the department. You could actually map all the things they were trying to do in terms of quality, cost and delivery, right back to the business plan, which of course is a little bit harder perhaps in some of the other innovations where you can't do that. Now the great thing about this particular project, it almost has sustainability and embedding built into it because it's an integral part of the business plan. But one of the things I think, you know, when we were talking about embedding is, you know, that there are sort of perhaps 3 or 4 different aspects of embedding. There's how do you embed it in the culture and people's mindsets, etc., so you actually get sort of buy-in and as you say, Andrew, you know, get that passion going elsewhere. But it's also about embedding it into strategies, systems, processes, initiatives, etc. It's also about embedding into things like tools and resources, so you kind of create outputs which you know, like train the trainer guides or case studies, etc., which other sort of faculties can use. So I think this whole issue of sort of, different types of projects and how they link into the sustainability thing. It is different for different projects.
I'm quite interested in how you can take that into things like postgraduate certificates in learning and teaching and higher education, because I think there is you do have a group of enthusiastic people who are engaging in furthering their knowledge and skills in the art of teaching. Yes. And if we can get more of the lessons learned, I think, from the Jisc projects embedded within PG certs, I think that's as yet unexploited way of transforming practice and sustaining it beyond the life of project activity.
I actually think something that's probably been very different about this Jisc program to other Jisc programs is that my cluster have shared a journey, and I know that's something that Jisc have tried to do in the past with programs, but it only sort of happens when they come together for a program meeting. And I think the clusters have facilitated that shared journey, and they've all been to do with affecting change, and they've all transformed practice. They've made a difference, and I think that's been very evident if you listen to the conversations they've had with each other, the conversations they've had with me, the presentations they've made, things like the experts group. I think the Great Exhibition, for example, at the last joint programme meeting, I actually, and I don't know if you felt the same, Andrew, I felt incredibly proud, I mean, of all my projects, but actually two of them in particular who came away with prizes, nice big bars of chocolate, and it was the accolade really of their peers who demonstrated interest by standing there and talking to them about their project, looking at their posters, talking to the students who'd come, and I think that was really quite amazing that they've made a difference, and I think they know they've made a difference. It probably ought to be recognised that we were also change agents ourselves, because I think, going back to the earlier comment I made about what the CAMEL process enabled institutions to do, I think the critical friend was also transforming practice, or if not doing it directly, through the role, through the facilitation, through managing certain processes, was themselves contributing to that transformation.
Yes.
And I think that it wasn't written anywhere. I don't think that the critical friend will play a role in transforming thinking about it. Even if it was thinking about Jisc, funding, doing a project, managing institutional change, contributing to the sector, whatever it was, I think we played a valuable role in it.
I think that's true, because one of the things the critical friend can bring is we can step back from the project. We're not involved in the day-to-day minutiae of trying to get it forward. And I think sometimes the project teams are so close to the projects, they don't always see the opportunities for something. And one of the things I think we can do is point out these opportunities for them that ultimately probably gets a bigger transformation, a bigger change than they had hoped for initially. I think there's something to be said too about sharing the project's passion for the work that they're doing. I found myself becoming equally passionate about all of my projects and excited by them, and I suppose that manifests itself in the critical friend role as a kind of advocacy role, being able to talk about the projects to their senior management team, for example, with passion, with enthusiasm, but also to be able to take that out into the wider Jisc community has been hugely important as well, so that the critical friend becomes almost an advocate, a route for dissemination, because we ourselves, as a collective group, are a collective group of experts who have our own networks that we're also plugging into and using to then take the work of our projects into the wider sector.